This is for entertainment purposes only.
Prepared to state that I have been at locations where craft of unknown origin that did not originate on the face of this planet was there. I am prepared to state that while I was there, we saw living, dead bodies of entities that were not born on this planet. I am prepared to state that we had what they referred to as interfacing with those entities. We have contact with aliens.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of Quik Reaction TV, the coolest channel on YouTube. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and rock the bell for new releases. It's free and helps the channel grow. I got a good selection for you today. Quik!
Walk through walls training system. This is the patent. They're teaching you how to walk through walls. This invention is a training system which enables a human being to acquire a sufficient hyperspace energy in order to pull the body out of this dimension. So the person can walk through solid objects such as wooden doors. Then we click on this diagram right here. They tell you from the root chakra to the crown chakra. And we already know what our hands do now. Y'all remember when y'all thought we was crazy because we was talking about how we was going to have powers, how we was going to levitate and walk through walls. Now they have patents talking about super abilities and training you how to become a superhero by jumping through dimensions and portals. Doctor Strange. Let me know how y'all feel about this one in the comments. Follow me on all other social medias for more wisdom. Hit that plus button, and I'm gonna catch you on the next video.
We're looking at one of the strangest patents in the entire U.S. patent system. Patent number 2006-001425A1, Walking Through Walls Training System. This patent refers to a unique process, a training system that enables a human being to acquire sufficient hyperspace energy in order to pull the body out of a dimension so that it may pass through solid objects. This is very real and was used by the U.S. Army at one point.
Oh my fucking God.
Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Prepared to state that I have been at locations where craft of unknown origin that did not originate on the face of this planet was there. I am prepared to state that while I was there, we saw living, dead bodies of entities that were not born on this planet. I am prepared to state that we had what they referred to as interfacing with those entities. We have contact with aliens not originating from some foreign country, but from some other solar system. And I have been a party to that. I've worked it, I've been there, and I know some of the things we do is really terrible. They are not hostile toward us. We're the enemy in this instance, but we're the enemy, I like to think, for the good reasons. We're concerned about what some other country might do. I have concluded that I'm fighting against the clock, that I have but a short time to try to convince people that we are moving in an avenue where we are going to militarize space. Once we militarize space, we will have a whole new avenue of technology open up to us. While NASA says it's going to take another 1,400 years before we achieve what we call interstellar travel, I'm telling you, by the end of this century, we will be doing that. We want to acquire this technology. We want to make this technology part of our own technology. Within the next 25 years, we're going to militarize space. As a result of militarizing space, we are going to acquire new technology. We're going to evolve new technology that's going to lead us into interstellar travel. As a direct result, we will become a threat to them unless we spiritually grow also. But I feel that if we do not go ahead and spiritually grow, we are forcing the situation where the entities will eventually make themselves known. and they will make themselves known, and no power on earth can stop that from happening, in order to avoid us from going out into space. That if this should happen, it will happen to an unsuspecting world population. And that can create some very serious problems. But this doesn't deal just with the United States. It's a truth that the entire world has to be informed about. And that truth is, man is not alone. That we have people from other planets, from other solar systems coming here.
Stop. What do you mean by that?
We've got Nephilim, we've got the Giant of Kandahar, we've got the Greys, and we've got tall whites. What's the difference? Reptilians, mantis. First of all, angels can shapeshift. We know that the dragon, the enemy Satan, can appear as an angel of light, not his true form. The Greek word, and this was taught to me by my good friend and brother who's no longer with us, Russ Dizdar. The Greek word is metaskitsmonosai. They have the ability to shapeshift and present themselves basically however they want to. Karen's handler, Karen Wilkinson, who we published her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. It's a must-read if you're into the alien abduction phenomena, because it's real. It's not demonic delusion. These people are taken. There is a breeding program that's going on. We talked about this in our 4th film, but then we link it later on in film number 6 on counter mutilations, and we show how they're inexorably tied together. But once again, I digress. So you've got fallen angels can shapeshift. They can appear pretty much as they want to. They can appear as your grandmother, your dead grandmother, if they choose to. Greys, the Greys with the big heads and the almond eyes, there's no reproduction system that's there. They don't eat. So what are we looking at? In my opinion, these are avatars. They are essentially meat suits. They are biological constructs for the demons. What are demons? Demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Let's back up. The seed of the dragon will be at war with the seed of the woman. So that's Genesis 3:15. That's the gateway to the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative. So the seed war erupts 3 chapters later. Fallen angels come down. We know that from the book of Enoch, 200 of them in the days of Jared on Mount Hermon. And by the way, Mount Hermon is Nephilim Central. That's where all the mischief, as Chuck Missler liked to call it, begins. That's the nexus. That's the starting point. So the Nephilim are the offspring of fallen angels and human women, creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. They were never supposed to be here. This is why the flood of Noah occurs. That's number 1. So the Greys, let me back up. The Nephilim perish in the flood. They become the disembodied spirits which roam the earth, i.e. demons. How do we know that? The book of Enoch. Those of you who have an issue with the book of Enoch, I'll just say this. Jude quotes the book of Enoch. It was obviously widely read in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd centuries. Jude's quoting from the book of Enoch. Is it part of our canon? Now it's not. But in the Ethiopian Bible, it precedes the book of Genesis. In my opinion, if you were going to keep one book from the people, you keep the book of Enoch. You're going to keep one book away from the people of the world. That's the book you keep out, because it tells you exactly what's going on. Fallen angels are coming down. They're grabbing the women. They're going into them multiple times. They're having children by them. These are hybrid beings known as the Nephilim. They are soulless. So you've got demons wandering the earth. They're earthbound. So what does the dragon do? The dragon knows that a demon, in order for a demon to manifest, has to inhabit a person, has to inhabit an animal or an object. So what does the dragon do? He creates the Greys. It's a biological construct. It's an avatar. How do we know this? Because experiencers, people who have been on board the ships, including Whitley Strieber, talks about seeing the Greys stacked up like cordwood, stacked up like chairs, okay? One on top of each other. And there is no reproduction system, as I said earlier. There doesn't seem to be a digestive system. So they're biological suits. They're expendable. I remember sitting down with the late David Flynn and talking to him about this, and he also agreed on that. So moving along, now you've got the Giant of Kandahar, all right? And the Giant of Kandahar, we don't know how old that thing is. According to the shooter and the eyewitnesses, the smell was so overpowering, people began to gag. It made them nauseous. So are we looking at a being that's 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, 3,000 years old? And what about Bigfoot? So Bigfoot, in my opinion, is a modern day Nephilim. It's a hybrid. I believe that they are all have a nefarious agenda, in spite of what some people tell us. That's right now, with the evidence I have, that's what I'm going with. There's a very nefarious agenda when it comes to Bigfoot and Sasquatch. They also have the ability to pop in and pop out. The Kandahar giant allegedly had the same ability to bilocate from one place to another. Again, this comes from years of research, talking to whistleblowers, talking to people that have come up to me, and everything is very privy information. In other words, I can't divulge the source. But some of these people were embedded in special forces, and I'll just leave it at that. So let's walk through it. Fallen angels are fallen angels. They've come down and they create through grabbing the women and having sex with the women. Okay, and for some of you out there, you got a real problem with that, but that's what happens. They create a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. The flood happens, the Nephilim are wiped out. The disembodied spirits of a Nephilim are the demons that roam over the earth. Disembodied spirits, in order to manifest, need something to dwell in. A human being, a group of animals like the swine, where Jesus cast out legion from the man of the tombs, and they go into the swine, or an object. The giant of Kandahar, in my opinion, may be thousands of years old. In other words, we know that there's a diaspora when Joshua and Caleb go into the promised land. Are we looking at the diaspora of giants? Afghanistan is not that far away from the Middle East. There is a cave system, allegedly, that is underneath this planet, and you can go from one part of the planet to another. That giant at Kandahar came out of a cave, and more about that later. So you've got the Nephilim, the disembodied spirits, which become the demons, the Greys, where the demons can inhabit those biological constructs, those suits, and they can manifest in this dimension. The giant of Kandahar, which can bilocate, and Sasquatch, Bigfoot, which also can bilocate. They come in and they come out. They're interdimensional entities, in my opinion. Let's walk through Miami. In the 90s, Barry Chamish, who was an Israeli journalist, wrote a book, The Return of the Nephilim. I met Barry, and at that time, this was 1999, I had my first book in the Nephilim trilogy published, Nephilim, The Truth Is Here. And I went down to see Barry. He was speaking at a MUFON meeting, and we met and we talked, and I just said, "Hi, Barry," and I held up the book, and his jaw dropped because he realized someone else was in the same genre that he was. And Barry and I would communicate through phone and internet later. He passed away a number of years ago now. Barry's book talks about the giants appearing in Israel. There were footprints, there were photographs. So that brings us to what might have happened in Miami. Don't know. There's several TikTok reports. There's allegedly from a couple of people who were there. They saw shadowy figures, very dark, very tall, and they would bilocate from one place to another. What are we looking at? Folks, I have no idea. I wasn't there. If you know somebody who maybe has cell phone images, no matter how blurry, of the event, please shoot them here. la@lamarzulli.net. la@lamarzulli.net. So I'm following this story because, 60 to 100 police cars converging on the mall because some teenagers are throwing firecrackers and battling each other with sticks. That may be exactly what happened. That may be the truth. I don't know. I really don't know. And a group of teenagers, you get 100 teenagers together wearing ski masks and rampaging through a mall, they can do millions of dollars worth.
Damn! Oh crap. Is 2024 the beginning of the end and the year of the beginning of the apocalypse? If you're saying no, I wouldn't be so sure about that. This movie right beside me, The Book of Eli, came out in 2010, and it's about the post-apocalypse world, and wait till I show you what's in the movie. Is Denzel Washington speaking to us and showing us the beginning of the end? Look at this scene right here. What's that on the wall? Let's blow it up again. It says the year is 2024 AD. And if you zoom in right here on the poster, it tells you it's a tale about a boy, his dog, and survival. 2024 AD. A future you'll probably live to see. That we will all live to see. Are they trying to tell us that the apocalypse will start this year? I'm sure we all feel that heavy cloud above us right now that things aren't normal, and that this year specifically is going to be really crazy. You just know it. You just know it. Then we have the 2017 eclipse, and the final one for a long time will be in 2024 in April, making a giant X over America. A tale of two Trumps, if you will. Or maybe I'm just being crazy. What do y'all think?
Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Secret identity of Orion the Hunter. Who knew one of the first constellations you learned as a kid hold the esoteric secrets to the universe, including its origin, purpose, and future? The Tower of Babel really does provide a good foundation to answering many questions we all have about these things. right out the gate with the info. Right after Babel, each culture tried to duplicate this Babel tech. After being spread around the world, this theme of pyramid platform temples and Orion emerged all over the world. Babel was probably the world's biggest pyramid platform. Is that the black cube of Saturn on the top level? Right after Babel and the spreading all over the world happened, you see the smaller scale Nimrod worship, pyramid building, and Orion theme aligning happening. Also the constant redefining pattern you see. Let's check out Orion and the original meanings we can dig. In OG ancient Babylonian star catalogs, it was called Sipaziana, which means shepherd of heaven, or good shepherd of God / Anu. Also interesting tie-ins about this good shepherd taking a bite in the heel, and lots of other interesting themes we're about to build on. Orion is said to be the only constellation that you can see all over the whole Earth. Orion comes from the Greek for heaven's light or heaven's boundary. Orion also has a mystery cave, a huge, mysterious, empty spot. Keep this in mind for later. Also, jumbos, which are Jupiter-sized objects that aren't attached to anything and don't rotate around anything, were also found in the nebula. So doing a quick culture hunt, it seems that Orion became a hunter, giant / mighty warrior in the Mideast and other places around the world. In Greek, he was the giant, or most high, of the heavenly boundary, which he could also walk on water with power from his father. Egypt, it was Sa, meaning father of the gods. And pharaohs were said to go to Orion when they died. In the super ancient Aram, the constellation was known as Nephilia, and the Nephilim are said to be his descendants. And in Hungarian, it's actually just called Nimrod. That's right, Nimrod. But interestingly enough, in Hebrew, it's called Kesil, which means the fool. Speaking of Nimrod, or why they call people that, putting the final CERN pieces together, which could be an attempt to break Nimrod free, or Nimrod's god Bel, or some sort of verging of the dimensions, which we've discussed. Also, CERN was built on the actual temple to Apollo, who is Nimrod. Apollo is also Apollyon, the destroyer, the beast in Revelation 9 who gets freed from the bottomless pit, and leads an army of the dead, Night of the Museum style. And you're definitely not going to believe this one, but Shiva, who's out front of CERN, in Hinduism is actually Orion, known as the cosmic dancer of destruction. This is the kind of stuff I can't even make up. This association of Shiva to Orion, Orion to Nimrod, Nimrod to Apollo, Apollo to CERN. Speaking of Apollo, wasn't that what NASA named one of their rocket missile things that they were going to send up to try to blow up the... So, yeah. Back to CERN connections. Check out this article for a long-lived dark particle search. Says they're looking for a decayed essence. Are they looking for a being that once lived? Trying to reach into the ultimate ether particle candy store? To build or rebuild someone or something that once existed or let them through? Wonder if it has anything to do with Nimrod. By the way, these concepts also seem to make their way into things like Marvel movies and other places. Marvel actually does have a character named Nimrod who's 9 feet and change, and besides fighting, one of his powers is teleportation, so yeah. Also think of the wording here. God splitting atom to create another being. CERN or Mana's God splitting the atom to release or create another being. Also, aside from Nimrod, you'll see that Adam, Enoch, and Noah are big deals in the ancient world and are known by many names in many cultures. Enoch and Nimrod both ruled the world if you study ancient texts, and Adam and Noah for obvious reasons. Also, interesting side note, the serpent hadn't gone through judgment yet at the time of the Garden of Eden, so it still had legs and or wings. Could this be where we get the dragon myths from? Dragon legends all over the entire world. Speaking of cultures with legends of dragons, they're also the same cultures with this Orion-Nimrod tie-in. Check it out. All these cultures have the mini Tower of Babel pyramid platforms and all align their buildings to Orion. The Hopi, Giza, Teotihuacan, Nabta, the Black Mesa, and it goes on. Now let's check out some cultural stories similar to the Tower of Babel. In the Sumerian Assyrian Enuma Elish, Marduk built a tower / portal to be a gateway for the gods, at a temple that would be his seat of power, which the higher gods fought back against with tech that caused all sorts of natural disasters, including volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, and other destruction that definitely would result in a Pangea land split type of land splitting event. It also mentions the nations being divided up and a plea to Enki to restore their languages. Greek-Roman accounts talk about giants attempting to take the celestial kingdom by stacking mountains on top of each other, but they were repelled by Father God's lightning bolt. Kind of likened to Mount Olympus. Was the Tower of Babel Mount Olympus? Or how about Mexico and Central America, who talk about giants building a tower into the heavens, but God called on the sky spirits to take it out. They also mention the dispersing of habitants and how the tower was made of stacking artificial mountains, like the Greeks. In the Aztec, Tezcatlipoca overthrows Quetzalcoatl, who was the feathered dragon serpent, by the way, and sent a great wind to devastate the world. Also, some survivors get changed to monkeys, just like the Book of Jasher. And in Native American culture, just about every tribe has stories of giants, and also stories of coming from the Pleiades or Orion. So the statement that all this stuff is just made up, or Hebrew or other sources are just unreliable, is the actual conspiracy theory. All these cultures would have to be in on it. Also, on the aligning to Orion / heaven tip, you'll find the as above, so below principle. the mirroring concept of mirror portals. Speaking of mirrors, do you remember the whole Beetlejuice 3 times in the mirror? Some of you will remember that from when you're kids. Beetlejuice also happens to be one of the stars in Orion, and you're supposed to say his name 3 times in a mirror. Although just a stupid kid thing, seems to be a tie-in with the thought. Also, beetle is the symbol for resurrection in a lot of cultures. Full circle. So you see this aligning and pattern of building continuing up until the time of the giants with David and Goliath. And this is what you're reading about when you read the book of Joshua and all the military campaigns there against tribes of giants. Speaking of David, this is where a messianic figure emerges. The shepherd warrior who kills Goliath by the giant sword and then holds up his head. Keep that in mind for later. Back into the Orion thread in the book of Job. It mentions the cords of Orion. Some translation mentions the bands of Orion. Can you loose the cords or loose the bands of Orion? I find that fascinating that both cords and bands also have a musical double entendre, having to do with frequency. The chord/bands of Orion star angels have to do with frequency songs that they play. Also, these Orion chords could really be a triple entendre if Nimrod, the fool, Orion the hunter, is bound, and CERN is some sort of attempt to free him or Baal. Can you loose the cords of Orion? Only God can. Aside from this bottomless pit release, could loosing the cords of Orion also mean unleashing the powers of heaven? Quadruple entendre. That trifold strong Proverbs chord, the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Speaking of Orion, some cultures have him with a bow. Interestingly about the bow, God's promise with the rainbow, it was not actually called a rainbow, it was called a bow. So again, you have this giant with a bow. Also, with this pattern of counterfeiting and duplicating and redefining, you'll see in Revelation the white horse rider with the bow. Other depictions of Orion show him holding a lion head with a club. How about Goliath's head and a sword? How about his belt, that shepherd's pouch with the special stones? I wonder if those are the living stones of the New Jerusalem. Also, medieval Muslim astronomers called the 6th brightest star in Orion Saf, or the giant sword, as in Goliath's sword. Whose sword did David use to cut off the head of the giant? Who are we looking at, Orion the mighty hunter, or Messiah the giant killer? Could Orion be the original messianic shepherd warrior, Davidic sky symbol / sky sigil location for heaven, who by patterned hijacking and redefining became known as Nimrod / Antichrist, Mystery Babylon religion, and also revealed the secret to possibly where we came from, the location of heaven, and could be the major clue of why all old world or ancient spiritual tech were all aligned to Orion. At minimum, all these fun thoughts are tied into a common thread that becomes very clear. This experiment started at Nimrod. At first it sounds cool tech, powerful warrior, big reputation, but in the end, the Kasil, known as a fool for his choices to challenge God. Also in this picture, it looks like a circuit board sigil in the sky above his head, having to do with the firmament. But don't worry, the firmament will not be disabled by anybody except God himself when Revelation says he will roll it back like a scroll himself. Speaking of that scroll, coming up we're going to be exploring the mystery of Ezekiel's terrible crystal. In the meantime, I'll leave you with the final thought form. Think of this pattern of 3. Orion's belt, the pyramids of Giza, and the 3 crosses. What's so special is what's in the middle. You have the Great Pyramid, you have the secret empty place cave and nebula, and you have Jesus. What was that place called where he died? Was it Golgotha? Does that mean place of the skull? Could that be the skull Orion is holding up? The place of the skull, the cave, the power of resurrection, the secret cave in Orion's belt, heaven, the secret cave of the Messiah maybe? Also, right across from Orion, there's a scorpion poised for attack. In the middle is a man holding a snake doing a battle. It's the 13th sign of the wheel, Ophiuchus. But before the scorpion can make it to Ophiuchus to defeat him, Orion, the mighty shepherd warrior, has his back, with his sword and his victory in his hand. If that's not some tag team champions of the universe tip, I don't know what is. Whatever you're going through, keep fighting off those snakes. The mighty heavenly shepherd has your back. Contemplate these mysteries on your own time. And don't forget to put on that Orion belt of truth. See you next time.
You're that guy, pal. Trust me. You're that guy.
That we would naturally meet at the end of our cycle of 12, where we'd come together and then we would merge. And usually they'd end up as romantic couples because when you combine, there's a lot of people don't realize, sexuality is about combining Kundalini coding and DNA coding. When you unite with someone, you are taking on part of their codes and they're taking on part of your codes as far as the template scalar wave patterns. With gender twins, the progressive coming together as, well, it was originally the divine coupling. The married couple really kind of symbolized that. They were stimulating rapid activation of each other's gene codes. So they would progressively and synchronistically be able to work their way into ascension together. And they would ascend together and end up in density 2 cycles, or higher if they had higher coding. That was a natural way it was supposed to work. With indigos, it's even more fun. I'm going to part of this, but not all of it because it gets really wild. With indigos, in every vector, they come in with a gender twin. There's a gender twin for every indigo in its own time vector. So they're gender twin pairs, right? Not only do they have the one there in that time vector, they have another set in the inner Earth time vector at the same time, and another set on the parallel Earth time vector. There's that extra inner Earth set of manifestations that goes with the indigo imprint. That's the Ioni Council that regular 12-strand DNA humans don't have to deal with. The twinning event goes back to the Nibiruan dyadic crystal grid. This is one of the nastiest things that was done to this race. Actually, they told me, to me, it was one of the nastiest I've heard of. That means there's a lot more, because they said this was one of the minor things they did to us. Because the incarnational cycles on this planet are, as far as incarnating on the planet, there's a whole set of mathematical relationships that takes place to do that. We come in with our twins, and if the Earth cycles are working normally, we meet our twins at the end of our 12 cycle, and then ascend for regular humans. What they did with the dyadic crystal grid was throw codes in that mismatch and scramble the timelines just enough where gender twins could not come together. That kept everybody trapped down here. Because if you don't merge with the coding of your gender twin, either here or on the astral, you don't get the final activation where you both become one again to get up to the next level. That's one of the ways they entrapped human souls here, is scrambling the timelines and Earth's grids. So the natural gender twin cycles would not come together. And what they did instead was they tried to pair up humans with Anunnaki to continually hybridize, progressively trying to hybridize us out of our 12-strand potential. With the Ioni Council, it had the same effect. But the thing with the Ioni Council is, being an indigo child has some special features. Not only do you not just have 12 strands, you have anywhere from 24 to 48 strands. Now with the human imprint, the simple 12-strand imprint, the DNA templates of the gender twins polarize from D12, well, from this low subharmonics of D12 down, which gives a real separation of individuality feeling between the gender twins with just human form. With the indigo imprint, the Ioni Council imprint, there's polarization in the strands only from D6 down. There's full bonding and total mirroring of the templates of the DNA from strands 7 and up. It creates a not quite full separation from each other, but allows them to anchor the Kundalini and the Kirashe and other things that if you're totally separated into polarity, you can't. It also creates, when you separate gender twins, a very, very deep pain inside, a biologically felt ache that doesn't go away. If the other is not where it's supposed to be, it can be felt. We've been living under that since 22,500 BC. What is happening now is very special. They're running the frequencies through the grids, and it begins tonight for those who will come, and it ends on January 1st. That will begin to reprogram some of the scrambled timelines, just enough, and we can do this now, and we'll phase lock it and collide. It's going to start putting those natural time cycles back together, de-scrambling the scrambled timelines, which are going to allow the gender twins to come back into each other's vector. But more than that, it's going to accelerate the process. So even humans that are not in an indigo body, that normally wouldn't, because it's not necessarily their last incarnation here, they wouldn't meet them, they're going to accelerate the lines where they will. If their gender twins aren't here, and are in the, have crossed over, they will arrange astral interaction with them. If they don't want to have a relationship with their gender twin who is out here, they will still arrange astral field bonding between them. If people are open to the gender twin thing, first of all, you may actually be with yours. There are some people, particularly indigos, who manage to come through and get through and move through the scramble in the timelines where they actually found the gender twin. So if you're part of a married couple and it's a good thing happening, there's a good chance you may have already found yours as an Ioni Council. That will amplify and get stronger. And whatever bond you have, they told me it'll go this way. There'll be a little clearing of conflict stuff from old patterns, and then there will be an even stronger bond than was ever there before, if you have your twin with you. If you don't, you're one of those rocky relationships that you just know, it's all right for now, but I really have a feeling I'm not supposed to be here forever. It may be the fact that you're still paired with an Anunnaki or a Draconian that you don't belong with. They don't belong with you any more than you belong with them. They can't ascend either that way. Okay? The grids are going to do this on a mass level. They're going to reorder the timelines to start bringing the gender twins back together, both in the Ioni councils and in the general human populations. It's going to cause some chaos, I imagine, in marriages and things that aren't real good. If you're not really with the person you're supposed to be with, you're going to find out fast, probably, because it'll kick up all of this stuff that is disharmonic between you. But if you have, now gender twins, this is where the harmonic versus not harmonic comes into. Gender twins share the same DNA template, one spliced into the magnetic, base magnetic, where it's more drawing frequency, which would be female, and the other being its replicate in the base electrical, which would be the male body form. So it's literally, there are men and women on this planet whose DNA templates, the codings and the templates beneath the manifest strands, and which is reflected in the manifest strands, actually have total compatibility. Others have some compatibility. Some have no compatibility. This is where it's kind of funny. You watch science trying to figure out, where does human attraction drive come from? Maybe it's pheromones, you know? Well, pheromones may have a part in the process, but it doesn't start there. Attraction to each other has always been about the DNA template. Our intimate relationships have always been about ascension. And that truth was denied us because of the manipulation that's been here since 22,500 BC and before, some of it. There are some people who will have connection with their gender twin on the astral levels. There are some who will meet them physically and some who are already with them. The reason it's being done is because when you bring gender twins together and begin the fusion of their DNA strand templates, they can hold in each of their bodies 3 times as much energy as either could hold alone. So if they're going to amplify the grid speed to the point where it would basically biologically kill everybody because their bodies can't hold enough frequency, you pair them up with a buddy that has matching DNA template, and you can hold 3 times the amount of frequency, which A, creates immunity to the grid acceleration, and B, makes you a very powerful resource, if you so choose to serve that way, to anchor high-dimensional Merkaba vehicles. If you're a small gender twin coupling where it was just the person from this cycle that you were intended to meet, you'll be able to anchor what's called a holophase Merkaba, which is a 6-dimensional Merkaba. A Merkaba is basically an electromagnetic field in the shape of a star tetrahedron that at its core has something called a form constant space. It's a space, a spherical space that forms inside of these electromagnetic currents, spiraling, counter-rotating electromagnetic currents in the form of a star tetrahedron, that creates reality fields. When you create your Merkaba vehicle, you're literally activating things in the body that create this spherical form constant light bubble around you in your auric field that allows you to pass through stargates without frying. Now, when you bring gender twin couples together, they have the ability to rapidly activate their own Merkaba, accelerating their own DNA strand template activation and such. But they have the ability to start bringing in the frequencies, depending on what their particular coding. Indigos, you put gender twin indigos together, they can anchor the Kundalini. Parts of it anyway, depending on if you have 48 codes, you can anchor the whole darn thing times 3, not just times 1. So people who come together, particularly the Ioni Council, who have that ability to anchor a line, they can anchor the Kundalini. You put them together with their gender twin, they can anchor 3 times the amount of Kundalini frequency. Kundalini frequency coming into the planetary grids will allow something besides not getting fried on a biological level.
What? Massive explosion has just happened at a hotel in downtown Fort Worth, Texas, and multiple people are injured. At least 10 patients, mass casualty incident declared after a possible gas explosion at the Sandman Hotel in downtown Fort Worth. Now, this was reported first maybe just 30 minutes ago now. It says explosion at the Sandman's signature with windows blown out, possible floor collapsing, and EMS are triaging victims inside. MedStar has set up a triage center for a mass casualty incident. There has been an evacuation zone established. Walking wounded are still being located walking throughout downtown Fort Worth. Command is reporting that there are confirmed victims in the basement and a second alarm has been ordered. Now, there's still a ton of speculation about what is actually going on here. As you can see, it looks like a pretty large explosion with all this debris. This is a picture from the other side of the street. I don't really know what that is. It looks like maybe the whole front side right here of the window was just blown out, but we have no idea what's going on. Drop me a follow if you guys want to make sure you know what's going on, because I will keep you updated with any new news that we get. And if you know somebody in Texas, share this video with them.
If you made it this far, I sincerely appreciate you all. subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts on today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Quik.